Welcome to Isn't It Obvious, where things are obvious. That's going to be the intro.
That's gonna be the intro forever now.
Right. We're doing a cold open? No?
I don't know. Is there even a point to doing cold opens these days?
I mean, this is like half-assed lukewarm, so
You know, sometimes it's okay to be lukewarm. Just
I
sort
disagree.
of.
It's hot or
sort of-
cold. It's the only bit of prophetic information Katy Perry has ever given to the world.
What about
Well-
the paper bag?
Maybe I'm the
Plastic
only
bag.
sane one here. Just steady as a mountain over here. Wait, that doesn't work. Mountains have earthquakes. Steady as a.
You can't pick anything Terran-based.
You're right. Shoot, steady as.
Actually, you can't pick anything like you're
Pretty much everything moves. Shoot.
You're a moon. You are a static satellite of a volatile
Thanks.
dynamic planet.
I'm glad to be a moon.
Hi, welcome to Isn't It Obvious with your host, Philip, and Micah, and Sera. Okay, there's a gap there because my brain stuttered. Like, should I say Sera first and then Micah? Oh, God.
Oh
Okay,
no.
But then you went sexist, so I'm
Yeah.
glad you have to live with that, Phil.
Yeah, now we know who the favorite is.
Mm-hmm. Thank
It's
you.
fine. It's fine.
All right, so
I've had a rough
isn't it
time,
obvious
I appreciate
that...
Isn't it obvious that Phil is in trouble now?
Yeah, let's go change the subject to the main topic of the show, which is when we talk about obvious things. Isn't it obvious that malls should be converted to residential housing? Malls should be
Absolutely not.
converted to residential housing.
For the one sole reason that malls are, by design, horribly laid out for efficient travel.
Explain.
All right. How many
You'll
escalators
never
are there
get
in any
to
given
leave your
floor?
house again.
And how far away are those escalators from any one store? Or sorry, one residence, if we're going to go with the
The point is to keep you
in there.
in the shops,
Mhm.
inside the whole time, as long as possible.
Unless you're saying that
Also
some
the
of the
parking lots.
stores stay in the mall and there's just residential areas within the mall.
That's what I'm
Ooh,
saying.
a hybrid would be kind of interesting.
I would
Well, then we're in
love...
super blocks, and this is fucking dystopian territory.
Oh, I mean, we're already kind of... Oh, good point. Let's sidestep that for now. And yes, the hybrid model would be great. The issue with what I have with current housing today is that you kind of, for the people in the suburbs, you kind of have to drive to where you would want to buy food and like that type of stuff. But I thought like with all of the crazy mall kind of vacancies that we're having, at least in Minnesota, where our big anchor stores like Sears are just disappearing.
That's not a Minnesota problem. That's an American problem, where box stores aren't able to make the money because of online purchasing.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I don't really like shopping at the
I
the
hate
big...
going to the mall. I hate it.
Yeah, I don't know if I've had a good experience. Oh, no, sorry. There was one good experience in a mall, and that was coming back from vacation when our engine froze because it was -20 in February with our parked car, and the battery died. So from the hotel, I took a bus to Mall of America at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday when nothing was open. And I got there as everything started going, so they did test runs of the rides, and the stores started to open up. And that was a really interesting experience, but it wasn't good.
I don't remember where it was. It was somewhere in Montreal where we had the option of going to a couple coworkers and I were there for like a meeting, and we had the option of staying in the downtown city or staying at like a motel place about a block away from the meeting site, and we're going to be there for like a week, so not a long time. And the problem is like traffic is so terrible in the wintertime that it takes about an hour to go like something that would normally be like 20 minutes for us in Minnesota. So just because of all the traffic and road construction, and people like drive there very oddly, that's just all I'll say. When it came time to like choose, because we can only book one car, so we kind of all had to book at the same place. The leader of us decided to go and stay downtown, so we all kind of had to follow suit. And the hotel was like kind of attached to a mall, but like there's residency places as well, and there's like little meeting areas and nice little cafe places and places to buy things. And it was really nice because you could be in the wintertime but not freeze your ass off outside. And I was like, oh, this is a really kind of neat setup, because in Minneapolis or St. Paul, I don't know if it's really that way. I mean, we have the Skyway system, but I don't know if it's really connected to like residential places as much
It
as it is.
kind I think it is. I could be wrong. I know it's connected to a lot of businesses and a lot of food places, and I think there's resident like there are like floors where people live
But I think that's
in some of
more
those buildings.
a anomalous compared to the capitalistic connections of the Skyway.
Mm,
Because it's meant to have it where, like, law firm in building A has, I don't have to go down to the street in 20 below January
yeah.
to go to
And use
Chipotle
a
across the road.
crosswalk and have to
Yeah.
wait for traffic and yeah, in the
I,
slush and the snow. Just the
I
worst.
think I remember people like having um, two different types of shoes when they go to the Skyway, like because they have to park somewhere and then walk in the slush to get to the Skyway system, right? So they would have their shitty shoes and then they would have their nice shoes in the bag, and then once they get to the Skyway system, now they're like changing shoes.
Mhm.
It's
So
like
like
it's
I
like you're entering a house,
right, but
putting
with
on
shoes.
your house slippers.
So I'm sure that there are not a lot of like residential access to these things. I do agree that's more business focused. And in my head, I'm like, oh, it'd be kind of nice if we started converting all of these anchored businesses in these malls and just changing them to residential places while still having like the interior of the malls that have their kind of like fun little coffee places still there, right? And you can kind of convert some more of those spaces to like maybe groceries or restaurants. And so you
Well,
could live a fairly entertained life inside kind of like this geodome. And, you can still leave. There's plenty of ample parking outside of the mall area. But your kind of living environment is kind of more connected to others, and you don't have to take a car to go somewhere. You can just kind of walk inside your own little place. I don't know.
so you
That's
want
my
to make
thought.
burb claves.
Bird claves.
Elaborate. Burb,
Well,
Burb claves?
I can
bird
see
place.
that happening. We aren't the United States isn't we don't have a huge population boom like some other countries might have, and we're not set up necessarily like we like having space, like we like having a yard, like that's or at least that's what the boomers liked. I don't know about us. I know Phil, you might have a small yard. I have a tiny yard. I have like a minuscule yard. Micah does not have a yard.
Yeah, I have a bunch of yellow grass that has been killed by all the dog piss.
Yeah. So so but I can still see the trajectory of maybe will the suburbs will eventually become more city like, more urban like.
Well,
Like if
how
you've
is
ever
it at your end-ish of the region in terms of retirement homes, like apartment buildings popping up that are assisted livings and stuff like that? Because
there's
around my place, there have been five, six, like,
I
I don't
would
know,
say
80,
yeah,
100 unit apartment buildings go up that are just senior living to take care of boomers.
yeah,
What's going to
I've
happen when
seen
those boomers die?
they're going to become regular apartment buildings at that point probably because
All
there
A
right.
won't
tax
be enough.
write-off for 55 pluses?
Well, there won't be any there won't they'll all die off and there won't be as many, it won't be the need. So they'll have to turn it into like older apartment buildings and then us millennials will move in there in, 30 years or whatever. And they'll be garbage.
When we're 55 pluses.
And when we're 55 pluses, yeah.
Damn it, I want to move here when I was 30, not when I'm 60.
To your point, Mike, about those apartment complexes just for 55 and older, because I'm looking into
There's a
that
lot.
for my parents, because they're at a point where they shouldn't be shoveling the snow and mowing the lawn. And the problem is it's like they could sell their house, which is a decent sized house for a family of five, and they wouldn't make much of a profit, if at all, when they go to these condo apartment places. Like it's the same type of price bracket because the demand is so high for these luxury senior apartments because
Mhm.
there's such a huge
You
block of
almost might as well
population.
just hire hospice or something to come and make sure you're okay, or hire someone to, mow your lawn and
Right.
shovel your snow.
But are
Um,
those secondary parts on most often a fixed income worth worth
well,
it compared to moving into a place where that is not a concern for the residents?
my
That's
thought
what
as
you
far
mean.
as income goes is that like if you can't afford a luxury apartment, you probably are not going to be in a good spot by the time you need it. right? Like, I hate to say it, but there's probably this type of two-path system for the current aged population right now. You're either going to an old folks home that's like state-run that we know about, right? That you're basically have to sell all your belongings and have $0 assets, and then now you're
And almost no privacy.
yeah.
And yeah.
I mean, they're
Although,
not cheap.
no, they're
No,
not.
my grandmother had a fair retirement when she had all of her medical issues. Actually, both of them were kind of okay. One of them was definitely more hospice and more invasive in terms of medical access to her room, but my other grandmother basically had just a one-bedroom apartment.
I won't get too far as like the personal details, but I would say that I had like a family member or extended one by in-law sort of thing. Or not. I'll just keep it super vague as far as who I'm talking about. But
It's Agnes, isn't it? You can just say it's Agnes.
for Agnes, it was something like
How do you know my
5,000,
great grandmother?
6,000 a month for, and that was just, that's not a really nice nursing home. It was just, that's how much it is. And
That's too
so,
much.
well, no,
But
that's
that's
actually
with medical care, on call, and all of
right.
that built into it, right?
I mean, eventually, like,
6,000 a month?
yeah.
That's still a lot.
Oh, that's
That's
just
a
crazy high.
that's that's
And
that's a fucking lot.
no, but that's not even the high end of it. Like if you look into these cases where you can't live on your own or like you don't have any money, you're destitute, like these are the type of futures we're looking at where you'll have $0 to give to your next generation. And my 2000, that is like good. Like they don't earn it. That's your money, right? So second, yeah, that's a tremendous amount. So I feel like those that are in the 50, no matter what, if you're gonna look into like a senior apartment or a senior condo, like luxury place that are popping everywhere in the Minnesota suburb area, it, it's just a stopgap before you die, right? And your best case scenario is that you die in your sleep and you don't have to spend $6,000 to $10,000 a month in any type of care because that's how much it is. And that's your best case. Like it sounds like a really morbid discussion, but that's kind of where it's at. Um, and
What's your plan when you get that old?
I don't have a plan for retirement. Like I don't want to be a burden to my family, right? But I don't know what my medical history is like past age 60 because the male side of my family never lived that long due to wars. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So we don't know if there's Alzheimer's or other type of illnesses that get us. And the worst case is going to be something like Alzheimer's or dementia, where you have to have really expensive care and you don't know who you are anymore. That's kind of something that I actually really am afraid about. I don't want to be a burden to my kiddos. When I talked to my parents' thoughts about their plans for retirement, they had a very kind of morbid discussion too, where they would like to go to a senior home, like not senior home, like one of those luxury apartments to downsize.
Hmm.
But then after that, they're like, well, we don't know, right? So um, when I think about a geodome at the mall, I actually thinking about it as I'm like in the retirement age, where I don't have to walk very far. I don't have to have a car. Like my groceries are inside a building. I don't have to go outside if I don't want to. In the center of like every mall, usually have some type of carousel, but you can make it nice and green and pretty, and you can have access to a movie
A
theater
little
and
walk in the
internet
park in the
cafe.
center of the mall.
But
Right.
are you saying that the businesses inside the mall, like this retirement home that was a mall, is that only available for the residents, or is it available for the general public as well?
I would imagine that in this
Both.
case, it may be bad if it was available to the public, to be honest, because you don't know who can come in and come out, right? And if you have a lot of elderly people
You
that
would
are
have to
vulnerable,
you would have to separate, like you would have to have like security access basically to, like, say there's an elevator to go up to certain floors. You'd have to have like an ID card, basically, kind of like what they do with college dorms. Like you'd have to, scan your card to get into the residential areas. So like maybe there would
But
be
you're dealing with
residential
people with
areas out the.
memory issues and lapse of judgment and potentially easily coerced by,
Well, those
yes, this
people
is my
probably
grandson,
wouldn't.
even though they aren't.
Those individuals, probably this wouldn't be the ideal situation for their living.
I can imagine that there would be, if I'm going to go crazy with this idea, that there would be different types of malls for different cases. so you can have like something where it's mixed, where people can come in and go,
The
and
hip malls for the 40 and ups,
hit
the
malls.
more secluded malls for the
Well,
50s
you
and
wouldn't
ups.
get any business, like you wouldn't get any businesses that would be like, yes, I'm gonna. I mean, unless their business is strictly, that
Are you telling
population.
me a catheter and wheelchair superstore wouldn't be a hit in this
Well, that's what I'm saying.
residential model?
You would have to know your audience. Like, you wouldn't have like a Forever 21 in the old folks.
No,
Debatable.
Yeah, like,
I would argue that
so,
people of our generation, given the
and
option,
I
would
can
definitely
tell
buy
you
Forever
right
21
now,
shit when they're
like,
60.
no, I can tell you right now, like, the movie theaters, they'd be like, no, we want all ages to be able to come and see the movies.
Every
So,
Thursday we play the classics
unless,
like Fast and Furious.
oh my God, unless it was like a small theater, like
number 20.
that played old movies
Still
or
starring Vin
something.
Diesel.
Yep. He's in the
Uh,
mall right now. He's doing sightings.
oh God.
I was here for family.
He's he's on the top floor.
So
I
you'd
would.
almost have to make the shopping center part of it open to the public.
But would that not, having that specially curated for the potential residents, make it one, more expensive, and two, harder to get into because of the exclusivity as well as the expense?
Yeah, that's a good point. I haven't really thought this through. I only kind of thought about the idea of if you had a lot of mall residents that are just cash cows, is that enough to sustain the businesses that are not going to be able to get the general public or
Then
public that are not
don't make
interested?
it retirement only then. Make it open to any age group that wants to live in a place that's close by to everything they would need. They don't have to get a driver's license, they don't need to own a car. They can literally just walk downstairs or walk across the street to get,
So
whatever
you've
they
just
want.
made Peachtree.
What's Peachtree?
Yeah, basically, right? Like a hotel that's
Dread
just
2012. It all takes place in like this super hotel that's 120
Mhm.
floors, and it's known as Peachtree. And it's just the first 10 floors are businesses, and the other 100 are residents.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
just
that's
that.
I kind of would think that if I didn't have to own a car and I could work from home, and I can just go down the floor to go to my whatever Whole Foods. There's restaurants
Oh,
nearby.
fucking fancy, Phil.
There's like an artificial park or something. There's a PC cafe, some board game stores, like just some boring stuff, right?
And then even lower, there's like a subway that you can just hop on and go to the next, big hub
Big
Mega
place
where
for
hub.
fast
mega
food, but
hub
I'm on
with,
board, Sarah.
to visit your friend who lives in the
Well,
city down the way.
you could just even have simple spoken wheel, sort of hub and wheel kind of
So
bus
basically
system there.
Japan is what you're saying.
But like one of their bigger malls here in the south of the cities, right? Like they have it's like a bus station. So not only is it a big mall, but there are buses that go there.
Yep.
So if you had enough of these malls that are residential malls, you could just go to the bus and it'll just go to your,
Yeah, it should be a station for like a
right.
transportation station hub with shops and
Are we
I
going
would
to
be,
transition this to high-speed rail across America?
I mean, you could just have buses that can go like, that use biodiesel or some sort of renewable energy like hydrogen. And yeah, you could
Man,
have them.
if we had more public transport like that was convenient and cheap, I
Okay,
we would be in way better shape as a country.
one of the nice parts of having like these type of peach tree malls, right, is that you could eventually build like a transportation system because you have these hubs of people there, right?
Mhm.
Right now the problem is that we're so spread out and sprawled out that trying to get a light rail or a subway in an American city is kind of messed up. There's a lot of
Is that
like
the
issues.
spread, or is that populations rebutting against ease of access to the community they've paid premium dollar for?
Yes, I think it's because the spread wasn't planned for, this kind of thought about the future. And maybe it was, but then you have the NIMBYism, like not in my backyard folk as well. And that's
Mhm.
true. No one wants to have a light rail subway in their
I mean,
property
I
line.
wouldn't say no.
Well, it's
But
like if you look at Winnipeg. Winnipeg has a big circle and cross of highways,
hmm,
and Winnipeg itself takes up less than a quarter of that highway infrastructure.
hmm,
And I don't know if Winnipeg is that old of a city,
hmm.
or sorry, that new of a city.
I'm starting to think that
Nah,
there's
wait,
a
that's in Canada. Never mind, they just do things better.
yeah, I was gonna
I
say
retract my
like
statement.
They don't though. They don't.
I,
They do things differently, and sometimes it's better. But
No, they definitely deal with destroying their climate way better than America does because they
that's
give their
true.
population health care, so they don't complain about it. That they're
No, they
ransacking all
complain
the
about
oil
it.
and
No, they
diamonds
complain
out of.
about it. I guarantee you, people be bitching about everything and anything. That's
But they say
you can't.
sorry. I mean, it's very polite.
it's a very
I'm
polite
sorry
type
to
of
say,
bitching.
but all your mining you're doing up north is it's really bad for our water system. Okay,
I don't know.
alrighty.
Sometimes people like to shit on America a lot, and to be fair, they're usually right. But like, we're not the worst. We aren't. We are not the worst. And like, you go anywhere else, there are problems wherever you go. People suck. That's just a fact of life, no matter where you
Yes,
go.
but Americans suck more, Sarah.
Only no,
Go
we're
back
just
to your
louder.
Gutenberg
We don't
roots
suck
and
more.
think
We're
of
just
how German
louder about it.
acts.
Speak for yourself. Like, no, we're just louder about our suckage. Like, everyone else is a little quieter in their suckage. We just throw it all out there.
Did
So
you
it's
miss the
we're
part
just
where Tucker Carlson totally went on a rant about white replacement theory and thought it was a legitimate argument?
what are you even talking
America
about?
sucks. America sucks.
So does everywhere else.
But
There's
we suck more.
no, we really don't. Like, grass is always greener, Micah. Like,
Yeah, but
it
our grass is
sucks
yellow, so
everywhere.
it's clearly greener elsewhere.
No, it's brown over there, and somewhere it's blue, and you're just like, why is it blue? Is that
Norway, we don't talk about Norway.
We don't talk about Norway.
it's just ice.
For our Norway
It's not
listeners, we
actually.
don't talk
It's
Yeah,
about
actually
grass.
white and blue
It-
ice. It's not actually blades of grass. It's just
Yeah.
frost growing.
Just
kidding.
lit by whale oil.
I would say that the reason why I would like this American geodome model system is because it does tap in, at least in my definition of philosophy of America, of being just super lazy, not having to drive, just taking like this public transport to go to my friend's
But
mall
isn't that
area.
antithetical for the American way? The whole idea with the American way is you do it yourself, and it's not about ease.
Yeah, we're
That's why
very.
we have like residences miles away from each other.
So while I think your idea, Phil, is actually pretty great, and I'd like to see it here, I have to say Micah's counter argument or whatever, not the American way, is also true because there are so many people who are so obsessed with their freedom and
America
independence.
sucks again.
We have a very what's the word? We have a very, like you said, do it yourself, self subsisting. We have a very
Pull
independent, not
yourself up by your
interdependent.
bootstraps.
Yeah, it's that mentality, which is kind of dumb because let's be honest, it doesn't work that way. Like, we rely on each other. We're still a society. We're still a community, but
I will agree with what Micah is definitely pointing out is my flaw. That
Oh God, what did I say? I made a good point.
yeah, if you have, of course you make good points, but the
we like
point
space.
that
We like
really got me
independence.
stuck for sure, I can't argue against, is how do you open up the malls to the people? Are you just going to have it inclusive or exclusive? And that's a trap. If you have it inclusive, then financially speaking, from the American spirit, there's not enough businesses that would want to open, and it'll be a sad place, right?
Well, they're sad places now. That's for sure.
Well, it'll be more sad, right? Like, what type of Forever 21 is going to open inside an inclusive, or what would you call it, like an
Exclusive?
isolated, exclusive place?
Yeah.
No one, right? There's
No.
no businesses that can, that would be
It
able
would
to be
have
sustained.
to. It would have to. In order for the businesses to be sustainable, there would have to be a population that could sustain it. So the people
And
who are residents would have to be of a varying age, and the people who are able to go there would have to be of a varying age.
yeah, and that's not a good mix, to be honest, right?
Why not?
Well, the problem with it is that if you have this type of, um, I don't want to say it this way, but I can't say it any other way. If you have a large residential housing project, right, you are by law to have a certain amount of them to be low income. There's no other way around it. Like, it is something that is in our, at least in our Minnesota laws. And if you have like a 200 unit complex, that's not a big deal, right? But if you have a 2,000 unit complex, how are you going to be able to control for this if it's not going to be 55 and older, if it's not going to be for retirees only? If you open it all up, then there's going to be a subsect of the population that's going to be again, I'm going to sound like an asshole, but
Yeah.
Section 8 housing. And guess what? Those are not just red flag words. Those are words where people are like, you know
I don't
what?
want to live here.
I
Yeah.
don't want to live here. I'm individualistic and fuck you. I'm going to take my money and go away. Right. And that's fair. But then the problem is that it's not that you're poisoning the well, but you do need to have uh, res- people that are okay with departing from their money. Stupid people that are willing to spend money inside the malls to keep it sustainable, blah, blah, blah. But when you have people that are poor or on the lower social economic status, this triggers this sort of like um, departure of people with means. They don't want to be associated with that, so they will leave. And then you enter a death spiral, and off you go. Like the U.S. really tried on their housing projects under like the HUD, the HUD,
Hmm.
and I don't know if we've ever really been successful in a way that we could be the poster child of the world. Like very few countries are able to do that. I think maybe Austria, maybe one, but they have their own share of problems. So if you keep it to a point where it's um, everyone can go in, then I don't know if you could sell that to the American public. If you keep it like, oh well, only certain people can go in, like retirees, then the businesses are not going to want to play ball. And so it's already dead on arrival. Like I don't think of a good way. There's no good business way to make this reality, where I can just go in my pajamas to Whole Foods, get my food, and come back in, or order in Uber Eats, and it's not a driver; it's just a kid walking the food to me in my little apartment complex at the mall. Like I, I would like to have it happen, but the nuts and bolts of it is like you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you could, if someone's very clever, some MBA student person can figure it out, I think it would be a fantastic arrangement, at least for me. But you can't
Well,
have it
it's
both.
just like living in any city, just closer together. So yes, you have Section 8, you have like low income housing, but I don't necessarily see that being the the worst thing. Like I don't necessarily see it being a huge detriment. I mean, if it's a big enough complex, like it's a big mall, right? You're not going to have, well, maybe you would, but you're not necessarily going to have all of the residential areas in the same spot. There might be luxury areas, like luxury apartments, on one side of the mall, and maybe they have the mid range,
So the Section 8
and then
housing is in where Forever 21 was. The medium income housing is where the Target was,
well,
and
I
the
mean,
high
there
income
would
housing
be.
is on the high rise built on
Well, it's
top of
just
the
like you
mall.
would divide any. It'd be like if you divide any apartment complex. You have the upper levels, the mid levels that everyone wants, and the lower level that no one wants because again, no one wants to live on the garden level, but it's cheaper, even though you get bugs and it's a lot easier to break into a garden level apartment. So like no one really wants to live there, but it's
That's what
cheaper.
guns are
So
for.
my God. But what I'm saying is there's gonna be the stratification of the apartments anyway. You would, so I don't, it would be like a little mini city. That's what the mall would be. It would be a very large mini city. In fact, you could even have it be like a complex where it's not just one building. You could have it be several large buildings, like almost set up like an airport or something, like with different floors and different accesses to
Oh
different
God, and
areas.
TSA is there. Nobody would want to break in.
Well, like, you know what I mean, but not an actual airport. But I mean, I guess it could be if there was also a transportation hub. Like, so there might be
All right,
like,
Mrs. Swanson. Sorry, you were number 10. We got to go with the cavity
so
search.
there would be like cameras
Snap.
everywhere and there would definitely be
You just
security.
made my day.
So like you'd have to kind
Oh
of
God, she was planning on
agree
it.
to the living situation you're getting into. I don't see a lot of rich people unless they really want the convenience of being like right in the middle of everything and don't want to like have to go anywhere. I don't see a lot of rich people wanting to live in
Well,
this
what about the? Is it more
type
of
of
a New
thing.
York model where the first floor in a lot of 5, 6 story high, like
Are the
brownstones, whatever?
shops and everything
Yeah.
is a residential above? That's how
Are you just
cities
saying you
are.
just want more of that that isn't in New England?
Well, there's that in all cities, Micah. Like you just go down downtown Minneapolis and there's a lot of that.
Right. I'm thinking specifically of Whole Foods that has 5 stories of apartments above it.
Yeah.
There are a few in the St. Paul area, I believe.
So why don't we
Um,
just tear down malls because they're not efficient and
Do
build
what?
up
Yeah.
those type of business/residential models?
Yeah.
Look, I'm not an engineer, but oh, wait a minute. Shit.
Wait, shoot.
Hmm.
um, I would hope that a civil engineer can figure out a way to retrofit it as best as they can if they're very clever.
But are
But
malls structurally built to support the weight of apartment buildings on top as an addition? Or are you retrofitting just the spaces they have inside, even though those spaces do not have adequate plumbing? And if you had to retrofit that Forever 21 into a series of apartments, you'd have to retrofit each of those apartments with running water. And how much would that cost as opposed to tearing the whole fucking thing down and rebuilding?
it actually might be cheaper just to tear the whole fucking thing down and building, than
Because you
doing
can keep
post
the
work on
footprint and
something.
you can keep some of the
Right.
plumbing.
Right. I would say that the most expensive part of building a sort of I don't know complex is going to be the foundation, right? Which it already exists. So making sure you have the zoning and making sure that you have like that it's on the right type of ground and that the concrete is there, which it goes to your point of like can it handle the load and tensile strength, right? The stress.
Wait,
Um,
idea. No residency, just hotel.
So you just want the 6 blocks surrounding Mall of America?
Yep.
no,
Just
I would.
but in
I
the
mean, that's
mall.
probably true. I mean, this is the kind of what I was thinking about when I was, a person that was going to a hotel, and I just enjoyed kind of walking around in the early morning, getting my cup of coffee, and speaking my terrible French, and everyone laughing. I thought that was kind of fun, but
Bonjour, Americans.
Banjer, si vous
Banjo?
play coffee,
C'est la vie, I guess. I don't know how these are pronounced.
de soleil. Okay.
Get
I
out.
would.
Do you have French a fries? Oh no, just it's I know this. It's French fries.
Je voudrais coffee, bitte. Oh shit.
I'm shaking my head over
Uh,
here.
my last point is it sounds nice, kind of that like everything is localized, but an hour and a half into Wall-E, when you came to the starship that was essentially this premise, did you think that was a good way to live?
Yes, absolutely. 100%. I would like to live in that Starship Wally.
Okay, but how much do you like people, Phil? Because there's going to be a lot of people around you every day.
And your bone connectivity.
And you're going to have shared walls on all sides. Like, the only wall you're not going to be sharing is the one that is your doorway.
I mean, the problem I have is that as I get older, I'm turning more into a curmudgeon.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a healthy thing. If you look at studies about what makes someone balanced or not super miserable, the two things that they really need are is a large amount of money and
Yeah, that helps.
and friends, right? I mean, these are the things that people kind of uh,
But you're
not
saying money
require.
and human interaction make for a better life?
Money and human interaction make for a better life. The problem I see
I
is
don't
that
believe it.
those that have a lot of money tell people that you don't need a lot of money to be happy, which is very suspicious, right? I'm
Money
not a
helps.
conspiracy like nut job person yet, but I'm like, so you're telling me that I don't need to be like very wealthy in order to be happy, but you're very wealthy and you seem happy, and you're telling me that? Oh yeah, definitely. You don't need money to be
You
happy,
you don't
but
need money to be happy, but it sure helps.
yeah,
It
I'm like,
sure fucking
but
helps.
can you test this out? I could be the guinea pig, not the placebo group. Just give me the real money, and then in a couple years, every so often, I'll tell you how happy I am. And if I'm not happy, then you know what? I guess you're right. But it only costs you a little bit of your money to test this, and they're gonna be like, oh no, like no, I don't want to spend any money on you. But money does make you happy. It's like, okay, this is very or money doesn't make you happy.
I like that there was a study released that tested the theory because it was a thing. I don't know what level either of you are familiar with in this, but like 70,000 was meant to be the peak of like money earned and happiness gained in life. Because
Yeah, I
if you
think you
made more
mentioned
money
this
than that, you had
before.
to worry about more things, and that decreased your
Mm.
happiness. And this recent study was like, no, that is not true. The more money you have, the in fact happier you are,
Right.
regardless of additional stress, because you don't have to care about the things that absolutely stress out poor people.
Yep.
I mean, I
Like they're
think
shit
that's
breaking.
I
They
think
need
for sure more money equals happiness. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say it. The second one is people though, like
good
friends,
people.
good people.
You,
And the problem is that here's a
familiar
weird
people.
paradox I'm starting to notice more of, which is the more money you have, the less you want to deal with people because you don't have to deal with them anymore,
I
right?
don't know. I'm poor and I don't want to deal with anyone.
Fair enough. Me either. Like, but the issue though is that you can
What are we even
afford
doing?
not to deal with people, and so you become more and more recluse, which is actually not very good when it comes to wanting the second part of like not being miserable. So to answer your question, like, yeah, I don't really like hanging out with randos, but as I get older, I feel like this is kind of a necessary evil. Um, solitary confinement is one hell of a way to go, right? Like this is not a good thing. Uh, and people voluntarily choose it as they become towards their twilight years, and that's a very sad thing. I almost feel like uh, it's kind of like a shitty bargain you have to make with yourself. You don't want to be surrounded by people because people are terrible, but you kind of need people so you're not miserable. And I think that this kind of mega mall situation is like a pretty good balance between everything. You get to interact with people that make you miserable, but you would be less miserable if you're just by yourself.
But would
And you
you
don't
not
have
also have the inverse, where because you don't have to go far from your residence to get your needed essentials, or if you do have a bag boy that indeed will deliver it from 5 stories down at that Whole Foods, are you not then in a situation where it's easier to isolate yourself because everything can be taken care of, delivered to you, because it is a one-stop shop?
I think that the burden outweighs the benefits outweigh the burden in the sense that that already happens right now in suburbia, right? That you can just pay somebody to just deliver your groceries, but you have very little opportunity of dealing with shitty people, of which apparently you kind of need to in
But you
order
have
to
a
stay
lawn in
sane.
the suburbs.
I was gonna say, I don't know, man. Like suburbs, it's a little easier to isolate yourself, but there's still gonna be like, I hate to say this, but like it's like 10 to 25% of every population has like the that asshole. Like there's always gonna be someone who just doesn't follow the rules or just does their own thing and makes life miserable for the other people who live in their community. It's just you're gonna have to deal with that no matter where you are.
I don't want to pay for tree maintenance in the HOA. Hey, a tree fell on my house. You're going to cover that, right?
No, that's insurance's problem.
Can you imagine the HOA in a mega mall situation?
Oh man. And there'd be like a board. Ugh,
Yeah.
gross.
A board? You'd have a senate. You'd probably have a house. It would just be a mini government in itself.
I mean, yeah, probably. Ugh, sounds awful. There'd
Sign
have
me
to be
up.
like a landlord. I don't know. No, this. I don't know. I should
Although a
not be
fun
in
part,
charge of housing development.
evictions would be solved by defenestration, so that'd be exciting.
It wouldn't. No, they'd just no. They'd take them to the center of the mall where the park is, and they have these like big balconies that surround the central area, and they just have like people who just don't pay their rent or something or do like horrible things. They'd have like a public execution, but not execution because we don't kill people in America. But like
Wait,
they'd
wait,
get like
wait. Sorry.
thrown into the
In what
pond.
America do we not kill people?
Are you talking about the
Public,
North North?
public, Micah, public. We don't kill people in like the middle of town square, but we would embarrass the shit out of them in this mall situation. Shove them off the balcony into the big pool in the center.
So
And what
stay
happens
tuned.
if they have a heart attack and then die?
Well, old people would be exempt from that. They'd have to be healthy individuals.
So now
only.
you're being an ageist.
Yep.
Yep. Stay tuned the next time where we're talking about ageism. Thanks, Mom.
That's a lie. Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom.